Welcome back to the channel. We're going to show you guys a cool new little mold as well as cover a bunch of different rigging options for this bait. Now this bait was designed for the use of forward-facing sonar. However, it is not limited to that. It is actually an extremely versatile bait, and we're going to cover all of that in today's video. We're going to show you one of our favorite colors, and like I mentioned, we're going to cover a bunch of different rigging options, so stick around to the end. We're going to show you for the people that make your own terminal tackle as well as some of the store-bought options. So without further ado, let's get started. So today we're going to be making electric shad without sparkle flake. We're going to go with green pumpkin gray on the top side. This is by far my favorite color to use for electric shad. Get that stirred in real good. And then I know the actual electric shad, like from Yamamoto, is clear on the belly. However, I like to add just a little bit of snow shine to the belly on mine. Not a whole lot, just a little squirt, just to kind of give it a little bit of color. It's still going to be a very see-through belly, but it just makes it that much better in my opinion. And then instead of using sparkle flake, we are going to go with purple crushed rupees, and that is because this mold, the bait is very small. That's a 1/4 teaspoon, by the way. The bait is very small, so I've only got 3/4 of a cup of plastic in both sides, but I'm going to be able to reheat and inject this bait several times. And as you know, with sparkle flake, reheating can be a problem. So these purple crushed rupees, I can reheat this as many times as I want, and I have zero concern with the flake burning, scorching, losing its color. So that is why I'm going to go with crushed rupees, and they look just as good. I'm going to get those stirred in all the way. It's super simple color, just that green pumpkin gray on the top, a little bit of snow shine on the bottom, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of purple rupees on both sides. And this is going to give us a killer electric shad color. So we're going to get this all stirred in. Now, one thing I do want to touch on when it comes to injecting this mold, we're going to get our temperatures all the way down to around 300 degrees, maybe even like 295. This mold works best shooting it very cold, very slow, and you have to make sure you don't inject too fast to prevent little air pockets on the side of the head. So we're going to get these all mixed in, make sure our temperatures are down around 300 degrees, and then we'll inject this first run. We're ready to inject. We've got our SDG Multi Block for the top port, single port injection molds. We've got our top color on the right, our belly color on the left. Both our multi-block and our mold are labeled so we know it's the correct orientation. And as I mentioned, inject this very slow. We've got our block preheated because when you're injecting this slow, your blending block can clog up when you're going from port to port. So we've got our block preheated, mold preheated. Our colors are nice and cold. Now we're going to inject these nice and slow, and then we'll check them out when they're cooled off. Our mold is cooled off. It's time to open this up, see how they turned out. Which side they're going to come out on. And there you have it. I'll get these out of here to get this reflection off of this mold, and we'll take a closer look. Here's a good look at how that bait turned out. You can see those purple crushed rupees give that same effect as that violet sparkle flake, but you don't have to worry about scorching it on reheat. This bait turned out very, very nice. Now, as you can see, this mold does have an eye socket that is made for a 4mm eye. You can squeeze a 5mm eye in there if you want a slightly larger eye. I typically just stick with the 4mm, but this is a fantastic little bait. Now, I'll show you the purpose for the actual Mohawk on this little minnow bait, and then we'll go over some of the rigging options. And then one other thing I want to touch on real quick. So as you can see, it's kind of hard to see in this light because this color is relatively translucent, but this color laminated nice and even. However, we've noticed when you're making baits with powder pigments, sometimes you will get some slight bleed over right across the back. If you go to the website and you scroll down in the description for the mold, they have a note that highlights that. So just keep that in mind. If you're using powder pigments, you might have to inject as cold and as slow as possible to prevent any bleed over on the back. But now we'll cover some of our rigging options. Now for some of the rigging options, if I'm using eyeballs on the bait, I like to throw just a regular little ball head jig. Now one thing about this jig in particular that I like is you can also make it with a weed guard. And I'll leave this mold linked down below. But what a lot of people forget when it comes to these minnow style baits is throw these on a little ball head. I like to use the one with a light weed guard and fish this on the bottom like a little Ned rig. You'd be surprised how many fish you'll catch fishing this thing, just kind of dragging and hopping along the bottom. One of my favorite ways that I have found to fish this is on a drop shot. So I'll use the owner mosquito hook in a size 1, and I'll just nose hook it like that. And you'll be amazed at how many fish eat this little bait on a drop shot, because this allows such incredible range of motion for the bait. And this time of year, I just tie a really short leader, maybe 6-8 inches or so with a little weight. But nose hooking that on a drop shot is a fantastic option. For the baits without eyeballs, I'm usually throwing them on a jig head with eyes. Now this is the Freestyle jig. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that mold. Just a great little bait. I like to use this one in a 5/32 and 3/16 ounce. All of the ball heads are usually either an 1/8 or a 1/4. And for those of you that don't make your own, the VMC Tungsten Moon Eye Jig is another great option. And a lot of people, the bait keeper on this is really solid. What people don't like about that is the cost, rightfully so. So Bass Pro Shops actually make some forward-facing sonar jig heads that also work extremely well. And then last but certainly not least, this is a Minimax chatterbait. I make my own, but I'll show you guys one that you can get. This thing is killer on the back of a little finesse bladed jig. That right there works incredibly well. And there you have it, guys. That is the new 3.8-inch Mohawk Minnow from Hog Salad Molds. I wanted to get this video out because I have done some testing on this. I have caught fish on this bait, and I really like it. But I really wanted to emphasize, even though this bait was designed for forward-facing sonar, don't hesitate to experiment with different options. As I just showed you, you can fish it like a Ned rig on a drop shot. You can use it as a forward-facing jig in the minnow style bait, as well as a finesse chatterbait trailer. This thing has great action in the water. This little Mohawk kind of helps hide the hook that comes up in the back. However, it is not weedless, so don't think that the little Mohawk is going to keep you out of brush piles and stuff like that. But it will kind of hide that hook and then just folds down when a fish bites it, and your hookup ratios are great. I have not had any issues with hookup ratios on this bait. It has been great for me. Let me know what you guys think and how you plan on rigging this if you get the mold. Hopefully you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.